You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. So it begins again. Welcome back to CreepGeeks Podcast, Season 7, Episode 288.
Green children, dews, Maui.
That's good. Keep going.
No.
That's great.
No. Let's do it over.
All right. Go ahead.
No.
All right. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. So it begins again. Welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast, Season 7, Episode 288.
Green children, dews, Maui fires, Oprah and Dav's Hatman experience.
Yeah. Very nice. All right. So anyway, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
We got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
All right. So here's the deal. If you're a regular listener to the podcast, we very much appreciate it.
Oh.
If you're a patron, we very much appreciate it. If it's your very first time, we very much appreciate it.
Yeah.
So pretty much, we very much appreciate everything, except the way things have been going.
Okay.
I think things are getting kind of crazy, and it's starting to ramp up.
Yeah.
So, and I'm starting to feel it. Starting to buckle under the pressure.
No, I'm starting to feel it too, but kind of like in recent history, I'm afraid to discuss it.
Yep. For those of you who may or may not know, a long time ago, back when the C word meant really something else when it came to podcasting and such, we talked all about it in great and agonizing detail, which led to, we lost our Instagram, which had many thousands of followers. I lost my personal Facebook account, which had many thousands of followers.
I lost my Instagram, which was rolling, and that really hurt.
Yep. So lost like at least a decade worth of stuff on both of those. And the thing is that everything we talked about before, a lot of people were talking about, was absolutely true. And then here it is, some 3 years later, we were slightly vindicated in what we said.
Yeah.
Doesn't do any good.
Well,
but, hey.
And it was funny because I keep referencing that the New York Times did this really deep dive editorial expose type thing a few weeks ago, almost a month ago, where literally they had like bullet points of things and the subject lines were things we talked about, exactly what we talked about. And it turns out, that was the actual headline from an article we had read, know?
And it's like, common sense. And we're finding it, all the information that we were looking at, most of it was not from the U.S.
But here's the thing.
And it's like,
if you try to share that article or a similar article lately on certain platforms, you can't really share it.
You know what you get? Subpoena.
I was going to say a community standard violation.
Subpoena. Yeah, same thing, right? Yeah. So anyway, and we actually told other podcasters that we would talk to and other people that run shows and stuff, don't use the conspiracy word. If you do, you'll get flagged.
Yeah.
No, that's not going to happen. And then it no more than 3 or 4, because I can't remember if one was an actual podcast or just a YouTube channel that was pretty big. Mm-hmm. Shockingly, their stuff got turned off, and they were begging for people to jump out there and try to save them. Come send people a message, let them know. And these aren't like, really huge channels, because really huge channels, especially on YouTube, can actually reach out to sort of a handler, if you will.
Yeah.
To go through. And going back with YouTube a long time ago, back in the olden days, once you got to a certain point, you had somebody that you could physically call. Yeah. And they were assigned to you. You could also, if you were at a certain level, go into any YouTube facility and use their creator space to make videos.
Yeah.
And remember, I used to get those emails and stuff, and I was like, we should go to San Francisco. We could use any YouTube, and we, all that stuff, right? Yeah. Even though my channel is not big, it's all about interaction and everything else, and the fact that I've been doing it for a while. But a lot of that has gone away, and things are different. So in this particular podcast episode, we're going to talk about a couple conspiracy-type things that, or conspiracy. I don't know. It just seems to be a coincidence. Now, here's the deal. Some of the stuff that we're going to talk about in dues, as Omi put in the podcast title when she is directed energy weapon or weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The Maui fires. Mm-hmm. And, there seems to be a little bit of a correlation between the Maui fires, the California fires, and some other type fires that are out there.
Okay.
With some weird instances. And so I've been seeing a lot of weird conspiracy things starting to show up, most of which we're not going to talk about in this particular episode, because you could really go down a multi-tunneled rabbit hole with this sort of thing. But we did want to go and just talk about a couple different things and sort of put the idea out there that maybe something's going on. And so we'll briefly touch on it. We're not going to go into it in great and agonizing detail, because if you get pulled down in that rabbit hole, you can spend a lot of time in there, and it's probably not good for you. And it is what it is. One thing we are going to sort of talk about is something my brother actually brought up out of nowhere. Yeah, the green children. He's like, you've heard of that, right? I was like, no. And he's like, what? He just basically, my younger brother's like, how I don't understand how you could do a podcast and know a little bit about paranormal when you don't know about this. Yeah. So we'll talk about the green children and Dews, Maui fires and stuff. But one of the things we're going to continue is Dave's Drive.
Okay.
It used to be called Dave's Dusty Drive.
Yeah.
But just when I looked at it, when I first thought of Dave's Dusty Drive, I thought, this is great.
Yeah.
A week later, I'm like, that's kind of dumb. So we're going to call it Dave's Drive, because Dave makes long drive. And he's called us because we have a phone number that you can call and leave us a message if you'd like to relay a story or talk about something. And that phone number is
575
208.
Where did it go? We changed. Okay, 208 575 208 4025.
There you go.
Yeah.
Are you good?
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and play a second part of his call, which is pretty interesting. It's about basically his Hatman experience. And Hatman, well, do you want to explain what Hatman is? I lump these in the same category as shadow people.
And yeah, but it's like a very specific shadow person that's almost, due to the internet and modern culture, evolved into its own slightly subset entity. Hatman is very specific. Depending on who you talk to, he's either in corners or, yes, he's out in your peripheral vision, but he's persistent and he appears the same way.
Yeah.
So
it kind of falls in the category of shadow people. You might have seen shadow people on TV, it's all scary. You could don't know what it is, but there's also a subset. It's just the watchers.
Yeah.
They're always watching. And those, those are the ones that,
for me, though,
creep me out.
Hatman always seems, or at least in some of the encounters that I'm familiar with, he seems to be tied to a specific location per incident. Like, okay, somebody's going through something, whether it's like a traumatic experience or they're having a string of bad luck, they always see Hatman in the corner of their living room. Or, they see Hatman out of the corner of their eye when they're driving home from work late at night along a certain road. At least that's in my experience. So.
Well, that's awful.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a second and play it, and we hope you enjoy it.
Still driving, but I believe the Hatman exists. I've seen him. The belief that people see the Hatman when they're exhausted and when they're having trouble sleeping is probably true. Folks see the Hatman, I think anyway, for a variety of reasons. Is the Hatman trying to say something, to communicate, or is it waiting for you to fall asleep and jump into your dreams? I'm not sure. When I was a young man, 11 or 12 years old, I would go see my father on the weekends, go to his house, see him myself. And this house was in a much older part of Albuquerque, referred to as the North Valley. And the neighborhood we lived in was casually referred to as the Griegos neighborhood, named after the Griegos family that lived there forever ago, right? So, this house was old. It was built in the early 1900s. like 1920-something, and the guy who owned the house had held the house and his family for years and years. So the center of the house was a large bedroom, which was casually dubbed the kids' bedroom, because my dad and stepmother's two children would hang out in that room, and my sister and I would all hang out there. It was like the day room, right? There would be nights when everyone would be asleep but me, and I would look down the hallway out of this room toward the bathroom, toward the hallway closet where the heater was, and I would see a silhouette peeking at me from around the corner. It was a tall silhouette. I don't know if it was male or female, but it was a shadow with a head and a very wide brimmed hat. It was always peeking at me from around the corner. And when I look at it and try to focus on it, it seems to dissipate. But the moment I look away, there it was. And I'd catch it for a second as I look back at it. But the harder I tried to stare at it, the harder I tried to focus on it, the more it would almost evaporate. This went on for years and years. And as I grew older, I began to suffer with insomnia, where I would stay awake throughout the night, watch television or read books. And I've always kept lights on because I don't want to see what's looking back at me, or what could potentially be looking back at me from the shadows. As I grew older, I would always see things out of my periphery just chalked up to my imagination. Let's flash forward to present day. I've shared some of my experiences with the paranormal in the past, and things that are outside of the everyday average norm of what we find acceptable and believable in this physical world we live in. But in the house I'm in now, I live on the edge of the subdivision of the city I live in. And outside of my backyard is nothing but mesa. And for those who don't know what mesa is, it's like open high desert plains. You know, real old world high desert kind of environments where there's coyotes howling 10 feet out of my backyard. That kind of thing. So as I've gotten older, I began to just assign all of these things I see to my imagination. But recently in my home, I'll be sitting in my living room, going late into the night, with lights on in my house. Lights on in one room to the next, and I see something obstructing the light, moving past. A shadow moving by her. And I can never catch it enough to determine if it's full size or the Hatman coming to say hello and remind me of who he is and that he's still there, or what it is. Lately, it's been the silhouette of a child or tiny thing. And it's never malicious. It's friendly, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. Like it wants me to know it's there. And the reason I bring this up is I travel a lot for my 9 to 5. And I end up staying in hotels every other month for weeks on end. This week I've been staying in a hotel in Phoenix. A reasonably new hotel for the last 5 years. And I saw the shadow at the foot of my bed this morning. I slept terribly last night. And I got up, woke up this morning, collected my little teddy bear, and there's a silhouette of someone or something obstructing the television that's on at the foot of my bed. And in typical fashion, I freaked the hell out. Because the room was locked. Nobody should have been in there. I didn't know if this was me fighting through waking up or if there was something really there. Shadow people exist.
Yeah, that's not creepy.
Not at all, no.
Yeah.
That's pretty creepy. Sorry.
Yeah. Yep. I appreciate Dave sharing that with us. We've actually talked about some of the experiences he's had in the past. Used to work with Dave So he's a friend and family of the show.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and just so everybody knows, his house is creepy. So
It's weird.
well, I mean, it's got a feel to it.
Yes.
It's just kind of I don't mean creepy like, okay, so for us, there's all types of creepy. You've got scary creepy, and then you've just got something's going on kind of creepy. Mm-hmm. So, and for me, it's something's going on kind of creepy. So when we took a little trip and stayed there for a couple of days, and it's just like, man, this is, it was strange. If my remembrance is correct, that if you felt it and you knew,
yeah,
like something was going on, it would move.
Yeah.
And so it was like just always kind of like running off somewhere.
But see, I always attributed the weirdness to the location of that house.
Yeah, but it happened in his other house too.
Yeah, not as bad.
But the thing about New Mexico that we've experienced in the past is it seems like things can be transitory. Mm-hmm. And coming in off the wind, man, like coming in off the mesa. It's kind of a strange thing. So anyway, he's got a couple more calls that he's made, and we're going to play those a little later in some future episodes of the CreepGeeks Podcast. So we do appreciate you taking time to listen to that. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can hit us up, and we'll be sure to relay them to Patron Dave.
Yep.
Kind of say, hey, what's going on? Here's some questions for you. So I have questions. Speaking of questions.
Yeah.
And what?
I heard something. Kind of like the
Let's
rest
not make
week.
this.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we got stuff going on in our place too, but, like a giant lizard. I'm sitting in my chair. It's like, what? It wasn't morning time. Anyway, I thought I seen something out of the corner of my eye. I thought it was a snake. It was like a lizard, like a foot long.
Yeah.
And then when I looked, I didn't move my head. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, all right, let me see if I want to take a picture, because my full intention of taking a picture of this lizard was to send a message to you saying, this is why we shut the door. Uh-huh. And so I jerked around real quick with the camera, and he tried to run, and he was just sitting there flailing around Scooby-Doo style on the wood floor. He wasn't going anywhere at all, and I had time to go, okay, video.
Yeah.
Select the video. Okay, yeah, that's good. Let me zoom out, and then let me try to make a video before he finally caught some traction and took off underneath the refrigerator. And I'm like, well, he lives there now.
Yeah.
This is where he's at. So speaking of directed energy weapon.
Oh, okay. Great
There's
transition.
a theory, just to kind of do a helicopter view of the whole thing, is that for some reason or another, directed energy weapons or weapon can be the cause of some of these weird fires. And I say weird because they don't burn everything.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of a strange thing where you see, like, wow, a forest fire took, everything down with the exception of like this random palm tree or this random house, or, why didn't it take, it basically burns things to the complete ground. Mm-hmm. But right next to it, something will be absolutely fine and have like no sign really of being, directly affected by this, other than like maybe the fire blowing over it. So it's just been kind of a strange thing, right? So according to Wikipedia, a directed energy weapon is a ranged weapon that damages its target with highly focused energy without a solid projectile. And this can include lasers, microwaves, particle beams, and sound beams.
Yeah.
And potential applications of this technology include weapons that target personnel, missiles, vehicles, optical devices. And in the U.S., the Pentagon, DARPA, Air Force Research Laboratory, and United States Armament Research Development and Engineering, along with the Naval Research Laboratory, are researching directed energy weapons to counter ballistic missiles, hypersonic cruise missiles, hypersonic glide vehicles, and just whatever they want to point it at.
Yeah.
And according to this, these systems of missile defense are expected to come online no sooner than the mid to late 2020s.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course, this is off Wikipedia. And if you go to Wikipedia and check it out, because everything we talk about in the podcast is in the show notes, links that you can go peruse at your leisure. You might get hit with a little donation thing, so you can kind of like donate to them.
Yeah.
So it does go through and kind of break out some of the types that they were talking about, or that we basically just talked about real quick, or, like with microwave weapons and stuff like that, where you can use microwaves at a certain frequency, and this radio frequency can cause issues with, I don't know, like your skin. You know what I mean? So you can like nuke people from a distance and they get all hot inside and run around, try to get away from it.
Yeah, I went down further into the article to look at modern 21st century use.
Yeah.
Where things are mentioned like Havana syndrome.
Yes.
And anti-piracy measures, as well as what really makes me uncomfortable is if you look at the first image, it talks about a sonic-directed energy weapon, LRAD, deployed in a civilian context in the U.S. during the 2014 Ferguson protests and riots.
Yes.
And that just, that's really uncomfortable to think about it being used on citizens, Well,
you got to test it. What better way to disperse people than to make them physically uncomfortable? It's part of the active denial system as well.
I know. And that's...
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of people out there that say, that doesn't exist. This is not a thing. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of a thing, because if you look at some of the stuff, like, you keep looking behind me out the window, and it wigs me out because I won't be able to run away.
Well, because like a lot of the active denial stuff right now, because me being a skeptic, I'm trying to pull up some of those counter arguments, and none of them are loading right now. Okay,
well, it's not really a counter argument. I was just going to show you documents.
Yes.
Okay, so here's one that came from the Congressional Research Service, and this was updated May 18th, 2023. And it basically talks about directed energy weapons and directed energy weapons programs. And it says things like this little tidbit. DOD requested approximately $1 billion for unclassified directed energy programs in fiscal year 2024, or for fiscal year 2024. So if it doesn't exist, and then they're talking about, as it pertains, and this is in the Congressional Research Service report, Navy lasers, railgun, right? Gun-launched guided projectile, and other sort of energy weapons, right? Yeah. But it says, and this is the overview, Department of Defense defines directed energy weapons as those using concentrated electromagnetic energy rather than kinetic energy to incapacitate, damage, disable, or destroy enemy equipment, facilities, and or personnel. Yeah. And some of the directed energy weapons include high-energy lasers, high-powered microwave, and other directed energy weapons, such as particle beam weapons. And they're saying, this is outside the focus of the scope and this in focus. I'm like, okay. So this document that you can read, 3 pages of it, we have a link to that as well. And it kind of talks about, the money request and why they want to use and have these directed energy weapons. Well, that's kind of funny because when you go back and you kind of take a look, going back 2022, way even earlier, because I didn't put every single link up on the page. This has been going along for a long time.
Yes.
So these weapons exist.
Yes, they exist.
The test platform has been done. You can watch videos of them basically testing the lasers on the front of like this C-130 cargo planes, launching hypersonic, basically weapons off a railgun system. They had that in New Mexico, and they were firing that thing off. They just basically firing off this, railgun.
Sure.
At night, making loud boom effects and scaring people. So it's a thing. So we know that it actually exists. And what? What are you going to say?
Yes, it exists. However, just because it exists does not necessarily that's what was definitively used during the California wildfires.
We haven't even got to that point yet. We're just establishing that they actually exist. You are putting the cart in front of the horse. No, because
you already said few minutes ago that there's people denying that they exist.
Right.
Or that they were
used. They are. They are. No, I didn't say or used. They're denying that they actually exist. And guess what? They do exist, and they've existed for a while. And Lockheed Martin is one of the partners in this whole thing. Lockheed Martin actually made all of our sonar equipment. We track submarines, and they are a defense contractor, and they also hold several patents. And one of them is for free energy. So they submitted for a patent to be able to, check this out, harvest electrical energy from storms, like in the sky. And that's a conspiracy that I was going to talk about. See, I had this whole conspiracy thing laid out where it was like 20 conspiracies that we were going to chat about. And after I thought about it, I'm like, man, I don't want that in my head for a while.
So to harvest energy, the first thing I think of is that weird art installation that's in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico. I think it's like Cuesta or something.
You mean the lightning field?
Yeah, the lightning field thing.
It's just basically got lightning rods so it can basically take the
Several,
energy.
yeah.
It's got more than several. It's got
and
a
they
lot.
form an interesting
Like 200
pattern.
or something like that.
Yeah, they form an interesting pattern and all sorts of stuff. And you're like, the whole time you're like, okay, if you keep striking these with electricity and, electricity is hitting them, we should be possibly storing it or finding a use for it.
That's pretty powerful stuff. I mean, you got to have a pretty good way to actually. I don't think that you could just randomly store lightning in a bottle or in a battery. I think you have to have something that can handle it.
Lockheed
like
Martin,
maybe solid state batteries or something like that.
I mean, Lockheed Martin, you say that they're trying to harvest energy from the sky.
Right. Harvest free
Energy from the sky. I either come up with one of two ridiculous visuals in my head. Either I picture a very large Boeing airplane with a vacuum cleaner on the front of it somehow, or I picture one of those Cuesta lightning rod fields.
I think it wouldn't be a vacuum cleaner. I think that's silly.
I
think you're right. It would be like a lightning rod type situation where it strikes it just like old Doc when they were trying to get the DeLorean to go back in time and had no juice. So they put like the go-kart.
Which I thought
was... not go-kart. They put like the bumper car stick with the little metal thing on it and rode down. And then when it hit...
Even when I was a little kid, I thought that was ridiculous. Because lightning is so... not necessarily random, but it strikes such a specific area. Why would you just put all your hopes in one lightning strike, possibly hitting one large...
I think you have to make it attractive.
Okay.
You have to attract the lightning.
Lightning rods, several. Like the
golf courses. Golfers get struck all the time swinging those little metal rods around.
Yeah.
So anyway, going back into it, the Oprah conspiracy and the California wildfire conspiracy kind of goes like this. The California wildfires that we had, a lot of things were burnt and a lot of things that should have burnt weren't burnt. And then people saying, well, that's because it's been a directed energy weapon. It basically can take and shoot this energy down from space or wherever and pretty much just completely basically disintegrate whatever it was on. I mean, whole houses were down to the foundation.
Yeah.
And if you've ever seen a house burnt down, a lot of times there's more than just the foundation left.
Yeah.
I mean, there's parts of it, you go, man, that was a house. These things have been wiped off to the foundation. A lot of area that was taken out, trees were still standing and trees were fine. Even grass was fine. Cars turned to metal slag.
Yeah.
And you think, man, to have a fire burn that intense to melt a car, you think it would melt that tree right next to it. So, things like that. And that was the big thing. It's like, okay, man, that's got to be a directed energy weapon that did that, right? That was the big theory. And it's like, okay, can't really, whatever. And then in Tennessee, when that RV exploded, somebody was like, oh, that's a directed energy weapon that made that RV explode.
Yeah.
And then now we have the Maui fires, where it seems like a large chunk of Maui just gone.
Yeah.
And they said it's a fire. They said it was a fire basically spurred on with intensity from, I think it was Hurricane Isabel. And the winds created like a firestorm situation.
Yeah.
But again, you have the same sort of thing. Houses basically down to the foundation, buildings destroyed, trees fine in a lot of locations, and blue things. Things that are the color blue, left fine. Like umbrellas. Yeah. Cloth umbrellas like at a restaurant or a bar. Like the outside patio area still had folded umbrellas. Blue cars. Things that were color blue, not that affected when you compared it to buildings that were down.
Oh, it's Hurricane Dora.
Dora?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Isabel's a long time ago.
Yes.
But that one is so the idea is like, wow, if this is a directed energy weapon, why do it? Why attack? Why zap those particular areas? Is it a foreign country, a foreign nation? And the theory is that Oprah Winfrey, is opportunistically buying plots of land and things in certain areas. She buys as much as she can and then turns around and something happens like a fire, right? And the land that's that she wants to accumulate and couldn't get before because it was inhabited or whatever. Now she can buy, because who wants to buy that? Scorched earth. There's nothing there. And so she buys that too. And she's been buying up land in Maui, and she bought up land in California. And it's not just her, it's other places as well. And that sort of lends itself to the California thing. It's like, why were certain people's houses burned to the foundation and others just completely fine? It's almost selective. So is this a directed energy weapon attack? Just a random thing? Is it a real thing? I mean, who knows? But it is Oprah conspiracy theory. It's kind of crazy. An unsubstantiated online conspiracy theory is blaming Oprah Winfrey for the devastating wildfires in Maui. Right? Mm-hmm. Where she happens to own property. Wildfires began sweeping through Hawaiian Island last week, fueled by Hurricane Dora. The number of fatalities stands at 111 at the time of this podcast, still over 1,000 people missing. And West Maui in particular was ravaged by blazes, including the seaside town of Lahaina, right?
Yeah.
Which is about an hour away from where Oprah Winfrey owns a ranch.
Okay.
And the media mogul, she tried to go and lend assistance at the emergency shelter with her news crew.
Yeah.
And it kind of like turned her away.
Oh.
Like, why are you going to bring people in here and film their suffering, right?
Yeah.
So the incident led to swift backlash online. She tried to do that, but anyway, one social media users seemed to accuse the star of sparking the wildfires near her property in a bid to purchase land for herself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the former talk show host currently owns 2,000 acres of land on Maui, including 897 acres of agricultural land purchased earlier this year.
890?
897, yeah, acres of additional land.
Jeez.
Agricultural land that was purchased earlier this year for $6.6 million. And she's been buying up land like crazy. So, in the past couple of years, right? In the last few years, she's gone from about 100 acres of land in Maui to over 1,000 acres. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a fire comes and destroys many homes near her, but her land remains basically untouched. And then sound familiar? So this guy Wallace hinted that the star may have been responsible for the 2017 fires in California that destroyed more than 700 properties near Winfrey's Montecito home. Her estate was not damaged in the blaze, although she was forced to evacuate the area. Her property remained untouched. So after 2017, she continued expanding her land in Montecito to over 70 acres.
Okay.
And so this guy's post went viral. Of course it did. I've seen it too. I'm like, ooh, he's got 12 million views, 70,000 likes, 25,000 reposts. However, the other Twitter users, I'm just going to call it X, I guess, have jumped to the defense of the TV personality, and there is no evidence to suggest that Oprah Winfrey was behind the fires. Well, of course not. Why would there be any evidence linking her to the fires? Because you think that she would just come out and say, yep, it was me? If she's part of the big conspiracy, right? If she's Illuminati or whatever and has that capability, that makes her super powerful.
I don't know. I'm sitting here trying to look up like wildfire damage, Yeah. And also keep in mind.
Well, I like how that worked up some people get. Oprah Winfrey has literally been on the ground helping people. To make up a conspiracy theory without a shred of evidence is both irresponsible and disgusting.
Where her house is and all this other stuff. And then some of the blue umbrella, blue vehicle conspiracy stuff.
Yeah, it's great.
Some of the accounts that have been posting videos have already been caught because they're using Getty stock images of blue items in Maui.
Yeah.
So that I'm not, I feel a little foolish about just even entertaining that one. You
mean like when they were talking about the war in Afghanistan and how terrible things were? Because of something that a president did, only come to find out it was basically a ranch, or like in Kentucky, or somewhere like that, where they were basically they have like a celebration where they all get together and shoot a car and stuff with everything they got, and they put it on the news saying, and because Donald Trump did this is what's happening, and it's like that's not even. And the CBS used it, and they used it twice, same footage. Wasn't even really like this crazy attack, and they're like, oh my gosh. And it's like, that's a shooting range where they get together and have a big celebration and blow stuff up, because that's what you do. Why not pull some cars and stuff out there and just light it up? But that's the problem with the media in general. They'll use whatever means they can and try to find what images they can to prove a point.
Well, like, what was it? Just a few months ago, somebody was talking about...
or for content filler.
It was like some Ukrainian or Russian building that had been bombed, and they just used stock footage of, like, a hotel that had fallen in on itself in, like, Wisconsin or something.
Oh, no, I think they were trying to say that was a Russian building that was attacked by a drone. It's just a random...
It was just a building that had been demoed in, like, the American Midwest.
Yeah, and this is the problem we have. Well, okay, so whether it's a blue laser or not, it is kind of weird that, you know, she happens to be own property in two places that's destroyed by wildfires less than 4 years apart.
Yeah.
Like, really close? Not like, oh, I was in California when they happened, because California is a large republic. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, she's not like a state away. She's like 50, 60 miles away and buying land in that direction. Do you think they're going to rebuild all that? They had people... Okay, so... Yeah. Okay. It's kind of a...
So, I finally found it. There is a map on the New York Times website that talks about mapping the damages from the Maui wildfires. And it's very specific. It is along a very specific area. Most or a majority of where Oprah's property allegedly is, which is the Kula Forest Reserve, is a bit far from where the Maui wildfires happened. Very
How far?
Let's just say the difference would be maybe us to Spruce Pine, or us to Burnsville.
So 30 miles.
A little bit more.
That's
than
not
that.
very far.
Like, I'm trying to use the map right now because...
Especially, so if you're buying thousands, or if you're accumulating 1,000 acres, that's not very far. Now, if you were like, from us to Tennessee's a pretty long state, right?
Mm.
That's still pretty close.
Actually.
But the theory goes a little deeper, where it also talks about some of the other stars that she knows who have been buying property in Maui and accumulating more property. She's been buying property, and other Hollywood stars have been sort of moving there as well and buying property.
So there is a smaller forest fire that's actually burning, I guess, in the Kula Forest Preserve. But it's catching less attention. So
I don't know. It seems kind of hokey.
I know, but still.
Well, hopefully it'll be fact-checked. What they'll say, there's no proof.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. That happens, right? I mean, if you're going to commit a crime, do you leave proof? And then somebody like us that sits at a computer says, let me fact-check this. And they get on the internet and they look too. And you know what they don't find? Tangible truth or proof.
Yeah.
And they say, we're going to debunk this because we don't have any proof. That's stupid. That's like saying, because I can't see air, it doesn't exist.
And then when people can't find ways to make things be proven, things will get taken out of context or reused. Like the one guy, I guess, that's on certain social media accounts talking about the laser beam coming out of the sky directly targeting parts of the Leone city. This was, a doozy. The video stays up, but it turns out that the video is from a SpaceX launch in California.
Yeah, you can make anything you want work. There's also video of a couple people who've gone into the area and show you all the blue stuff. Like, look at this blue car. Look at that blue car. Here's the blue umbrellas that we've been seeing in the videos. They're there, boots on the ground, if you will.
Oh, I have
broken into it.
I have a Getty Images account open right now from one photographer who seemed to take it upon himself to photograph things. And just from a photographer's eye, when we notice and we're looking, we're like, blue pops in all of these images. Because he even got pictures of the president or various pictures where the dominant colors make blue just pop in your eye automatically. But if you look harder, you're like, huh, there's a lot of sandy colors. There's a lot of red in there, but you can't tell because wildfire.
Well, there's also a lot of red stuff that's been destroyed.
Yeah.
The entire point is that how can that survive? When you have cars that are basically turned to slag in the street and right next to it is a blue car, how did that blue car survive?
Well, here's one. It's a red pickup truck in fantastic condition, a totally burned out vehicle, and then right near there's a light blue Toyota Corolla. And then there's
Well, you can't count the Toyota Corolla. That's actually a bulletproof car. So if you want to go through and nitpick pictures, you can certainly do that.
Yeah.
If you want to nitpick video, you can certainly do that. But at the end of the day, I do find it personally highly coincidental that in the areas where these two really hard to explain fires, because they don't make sense to me, there's Oprah buying up property in those areas.
I think that's less about conspiracy and more like somebody deviously taking advantage of a tragedy. So.
Okay, that you just kind of proved my point.
I mean, opportunistically.
But she's been trying to buy land for a while.
Oh, yeah.
But still, if you're opportunistically trying to gather all this land and getting your buddies in, and you can't seem to do it for years, then magically, out of the blue, a fire happens, doesn't destroy your house at all, or your helpful, friendly people's neighbor's house at all, and then all of this land becomes available, and you're like, let me go ahead and stroke a check, and I'll take care of it. And then it happens again. And the thing is that next time this happens, she won't be able to go out there and start buying land because people are onto her. It'll be somebody she knows or somebody in her corporation. Somebody from Harpo bought it.
You would think.
What? Here's the thing. I don't think that people have to hide this stuff anymore because they just say the same thing. Oh, this is conspiratorial talk. If you're a conspiracy theorist, you're a nut job. And the media doesn't have to prove or disprove anything at all anymore.
Nobody paid attention when Zuckerberg was buying up huge swaths of Hawaii and like basically just anything within remote area of where his house is. And then we have like this torrent of celebrities and non-U.S. investors buying up parts of Hawaii. And it's not, I get mad because it's not fair because the people of Hawaii should own Hawaii. And just
like the people in the mountains around here should be able to own their ancestral land. They've been there for 150, 200 years. And then here comes Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
Let's buy an entire mountaintop or two so we can have a view and put a golf course up there.
And I find it very interesting that Hawaiians have never had sovereignty like given to them. Hawaiian people are indigenous and should be treated as such. But no, instead we have these horrible tragedies happening and we have people coming in, taking advantage of the situation. And Hawaii has been very vocal about how they're receiving this.
Well, there's also other conspiracies about it that I wasn't really going to touch on, like, anyway, the Marines arresting.
Yeah.
And, okay, so FEMA director.
Yeah.
All sorts of crazy stuff. And the Marines have been doing, with some of these conspiracy theories, like there was one where the Marines basically apprehended FBI agents on Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
On the weapons side of Fort Bragg and arrested them. And Marines facilitated the arrest of FEMA personnel. And the theory is that since FEMA personnel were doing some things like a mass burial scenario type thing, and it's crazy. It keeps going. The more you dig, the more you can make conspiracy work. But, sure, it may be coincidental. I don't know. If it's a third time, it's not coincidental. I'm sorry.
Why does this keep saying he wasn't arrested?
I don't know. There's allegedly a report in a local newspaper article that said something about it. Not sure. That's how it all works. You just basically, if you own the media, or if you have a large chunk in it, we've all seen the videos where the media outlets and newscasters say exactly the same thing. They all have the same script and they all have the same talking points. So if it's controlled by somebody in general, you can basically set the narrative. Whether it's whatever you believe in, it's all corporate, right? So it's all sort of corporate speak with all of this stuff. It's like how many news channels say exactly the same thing? You just keep switching from one to the other, to the other, to the other, and they're all saying the same thing. I don't even watch the news anymore. Or I try to get it from other places just to see. Because it's all terrible. It's like I got enough stuff going on. And just so you know, Lockheed Martin and Rafael Advanced Defense Systems are going to collaborate on a high-energy laser system.
Okay.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, that was from 2022.
Yeah.
Where Rafael Advanced Defense Systems are going to collaborate on a high-energy laser system with Lockheed Martin. And what makes Rafael Advanced Defense Systems kind of neat is they're based out of Israel. And so they're trying to manufacture together high-energy laser weapon systems in the U.S. and Israel. And the future joint development would be based on the assets that have been developed independently by Rafael and the Minister of Defense Directorate of Defense Research Development, which is DDR&D, within the framework of the Iron Beam project. And cooperation will be geared towards developing a variant of the system for the American market as well as others. So DEWS is a thing. Yeah. And so after years of joint development by the Ministry of Defense Directorate of Defense Research and Development, DDRD, and Rafael, the Iron Beam project was initiated by DDR&D in the last year, and a series of tests on the system was carried out that proved the operational capability of the system. Iron Beam is a 100 kilowatt class HELW, and was expected to be the first ever operational system for ground-based air defense threats, such as rockets, mortars, UAVs, and delivering engagement at the speed of light. So the strategic teaming agreement serves as a force multiplier for Rafael in the Israeli market, and they're working to ensure the customers receive the most advanced, effective, and best-in-class systems. And the agreement will expand with the diversities and capabilities that they can offer different customers. So it's a thing, man. Iron Beam is a thing. And, of course, Lockheed Martin's mission is to develop the best security solutions to help our customers stay ahead of adversaries. So, and they see the capability of Iron Beam, which is developed along with DDR&D, as a technological breakthrough with its proven effectiveness against some of the most sophisticated threats, like rockets, mortars, drones, and UAVs, including in swarms. Right? And we talk about swarms and drone swarms.
Yeah.
Just take a laser beam and just start blasting them out of the sky, right? Just like, waving a flame at a moth or something, or a whole bunch. So the system is designed to provide defense against some emerging threats in today's complex battlefield. Yep. It's like, And of course, Lockheed Martin has decades of experience developing, designing, and successfully testing systems and critical subsystems in the defense market. Yes, they do. So I kind of thought that was kind of neat. So, I mean, if you dig and you really look for the directed energy weapon system or direct energy weapons,
yeah,
they're out there. They exist. Yeah. And I was thinking about this the other day because you've got all sorts of different things like laser, plasma, sonic, and all that. You know what one of the best deterrents we've had was?
What?
I believe it was Ronald Reagan who was talking about Star Wars. How they could use lasers effectively and other weapons in space to shoot down satellites and basically shoot countries from space. And he did that in the 80s.
Yeah.
And if we're way behind in our ideas of technology, then we think, oh, that was just science fiction. He was just talking out one side of his face. What if he wasn't? What if it was already there? What if it was already in existence? What if it was part of something like Thor's hammer, where they can drop rods, heavy metal rods from space and let gravity do its thing? The difference between that and a directed energy weapon is that one's kinetic. Be like getting hit with a rod. It's 40,000 or 100, was it 14,000 miles an hour or whatever it is, versus something like a laser.
Yeah.
It just zaps you from space. Either way, it worked. Yeah. Scared the Soviets. Gorbachev. They took down the wall. Communism sort of died. You know why?
Why?
They didn't know what he was going to do. Reagan did all sorts of stuff, like joke around for his fireside chat type stuff. So we will now begin bombing Russia in 5 minutes. Talk about some terrible, terrible, scary stuff. So kind of funny, but not funny.
It's not funny.
What?
Google just gave me an interesting result when I tried to search for something. It looks like the results below are changing quickly. If this topic is new, it can sometimes take a while for reliable sources to publish information. My search was on Deputy Administrator Eric Hooks resigns.
Yeah. Amazing. I had almost the same thing happen to me when I ordered something off of Walmart. It was bagels. Mm-hmm. And the bagels were like $1.60 something. And they said, not available when we ordered to have them delivered. And then I checked a couple hours later, and you know what had happened?
What?
The price went up, and they were now available.
So I'm looking at all this, these statements that he, was arrested and all this other stuff, and I'm finding where people are saying that's not true, and saying that the documents are fake. But an interesting article popped up from July 14th, 2021, in which Eric Hooks has announced his retirement from Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina's cabinet, ending a long career in state public safety. So suddenly he went from resigning or retiring in 2021 to suddenly being elected to, this new position with FEMA. And you go to these articles and it looks like they're literally being written as we speak.
Yes.
So
I would suggest using an alternative browser.
Yes.
One that's not Google-based.
However, the whole thing about, all these, I don't know.
I see that's the thing. Depending on how skeptical you want to be,
mm-hmm.
you can find all the information you need to enforce your skepticism and say, okay.
But also...
Now, depending on how conspiratorial you want to be, you can do the same. So at the end of the day, you're left up to make your own decision, right?
Yeah. Well, because one of them clearly had video that was, I was like, wait a second, I know that video because I remember seeing North Carolina Governor Cooper in that same room talking, so.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's a thing.
Yeah. It makes me very untrustworthy of everything.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. I don't know.
It is what it is. So hey, let's get some good news real quick before we talk about the green children of Woolpit.
What's
So this is breaking news for people who like Chick-fil-A.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I like Chick-fil-A. You don't like Chick-fil-A?
They're okay.
Okay. So now you just want to fight with me. I'm agreeing with you.
Okay.
You can be as skeptical as you want. Mm-hmm. It's fine. I'm not the bad guy here. You're not fighting me over this stuff. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I got my own directed energy weapon. I'm just saying. So anyway, Chick-fil-A has debuted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Its first new sandwich in almost a decade. You know what it's called?
What?
I don't know. I was asking. Right.
I don't even have this open.
Oh.
So.
New flavors abound, Omi. How dare you?
Okay.
So the most creatively loaded fast food chicken sandwich is going to come with pimento cheese, right? Mm. You ever had pimento cheese?
Yes.
Of course you have. It combines cheddar and some pimento stuff and some other types of cheeses mixed together with mayonnaise and spices. And they're going to put it on top of one of their delicious chicken sandwiches, mm-hmm. along with this spicy ingredient that has never been in the Chick-fil-A menu until now.
What?
Japalinos, otherwise known as jalapenos.
Okay.
Yeah. That's big news. And you know what's going to basically top the whole thing off?
What?
Honey.
Okay.
It's going to be amazing.
You know.
Right? They're going to add that together with the savoriness, the sweetness, the bold flavors and spicy notes and put it all together. Right? The honey, the jalapeno, sharp cheese, and chicken. Mm-hmm. And it's going to work all together. It's going to be amazing. What do you think about that?
I think what's even more amazing is in July, Whataburger announced a new sandwich.
Okay.
Yep. They've announced a new BLT as well as the return of their cult classic, the banana pudding shake, and the jalapeno cheddar biscuit.
So you just had to put that in there?
Yeah.
You're like, why are you fighting me?
Because
Why are you fighting me over this?
I'll take Whataburger.
Let me ask you a question.
Any day.
I'm sure you will. Where is the nearest Whataburger located?
Let me pull
Whataburger. Don't pull it up. You need to look. Use your eyes and your mind and expand your consciousness and tell me where the nearest Whataburger is.
It's not Louisiana.
Hundreds of miles away. Now tell me where the nearest Chick-fil-A is. 26 miles away. You know what that means?
What?
I can be more excited about a burger that I could see after I drive 4 hours, or more excited about a possible new chicken sandwich that I could sample in 26 miles.
Whataburger.
Okay, well, guess what? Whataburger's not around here, and just like Buc-ee's is not really around here, we're not making the trip to eat a hamburger. That's right. I like how you're unplugging everything because there's an electrical storm. And I can't do that because I am running the podcast gear, which needs all the power because the battery banks that power the podcast gear, Omi takes and plugs them into her phone on the couch.
Priorities.
It's not priority. It's like, oh, that's cool. Let me go ahead and, oh, no, yeah, that one's dead because somebody sucked all the juice out of it to charge their phone. And we go, yeah, I don't know why it's dead.
TikTok.
Lame.
It's a priority.
All right, so speaking of priorities, let's talk about the Green Children of Woolpit.
All right.
So the Green Children of Woolpit. You ready?
Yeah.
This is from Ancient Origins website. It's called the Green Children of Woolpit.
Okay.
Right? They are legendary visitors from another world. Now, here's the thing. This happened a little while ago, 12th century. So there's that. What are you laughing? That's a long time ago, right?
Just a little bit ago.
Yeah, just, well, in the grand scheme of things, just a time ago. So the Green Children of Woolpit was in Suffolk, right? It's a bizarre medieval folk story, which basically has been remembered for generations. That's a lot of generations for 12th century.
Yeah.
It isn't often we hear about children appearing on the edge of a field with green tinged skin and no knowledge of any locally known language. And today, right, historians debate as to whether or not there was any truth to the story. Some going so far as to say or claim that it actually describes an extraterrestrial encounter.
See, I think it's interesting that now we're associating them as possibly, ETs. Whereas when I was growing up, the big argument was that these children came from just another dimension. That was the big thing.
Well, okay, we can't say that ETs don't come from another dimension either.
True. Yeah.
So just reel yourself in with your crazy notions.
Oh.
All right.
Uh-huh.
So the legend itself posits that the Green Children of Woolpit were a boy and his sister, right?
Yeah.
They were found by reapers, and those are the dudes that had the Grim Reaper scythe out there in the wheat fields and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Or whatever you harvest with those things. So they found these guys near a ditch. They had been excavating to trap some wolves at St. Mary's of the Wolf Pits, which is why they call it Woolpit. Mm-hmm. Surprisingly, these kids' their skin was tinged with a green hue, and their clothes were made from unfamiliar materials. Mm-hmm. And also their speech was unintelligible. And so the feral children were taken to the village where they were eventually accepted into the home of a local landowner, Sir Richard Decane at Wilkes, and the children would not eat any food presented to them, even though they appeared to be starving. Eventually the villagers brought round like some recently harvested beans and the children ate the beans.
Oh.
Now, if I thought about this, because I thought about that over and over again, because there was legend that says they only ate peas.
Yeah.
Beans and peas, that was it.
Yeah.
So if this is the 12th century, and we're looking way back in olden times, if somebody brought you just some recently killed bird out of the woods,
Yeah.
knowing that these people don't prepare their food the same way as you do and all that sort of thing, would you eat it?
Or like some small communities, they had this never-ending stew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, where things and the people themselves aren't that clean.
Yeah.
When you're seeing somebody like reaching their grubby hand in there and doling out, and you know they got all sorts of fecal poop and stuff under their fingernails. It's very not clean.
Slop with their hands.
Yeah. I wouldn't accept it either. But you bring me a plate of beans,
fresh beans,
or maybe some peas, which is probably pretty easy to cook. You know, maybe the safest thing on the menu. I'd eat it.
Yeah. I remember when I was growing up, it was sweet peas and the flowers. You know.
Yeah.
So.
So they wouldn't eat any food that presented to them, but eventually they came around to eating some beans. They survived only on beans for many months until they acquired a taste for bread.
Bread's safe-ish.
Well, maybe the whole thing is that these green people were actually vegan. Right? And they just couldn't eat it.
Yeah.
They just couldn't eat the meat.
Yeah.
And maybe bread was giving them a hard time because you have to use like shortening and all sorts of weird stuff. I don't know what they had in the 12th century. Lard.
Yeah. Was this bread made with honey?
Fat.
I can't have it.
Well, maybe maybe physiologically, they couldn't eat that meat. Maybe they can't process it. So maybe after a while of eating beans and stuff like that, they could eventually get to the point where they could start eating bread.
Yeah.
So the boy became sick and he succumbed to illness and died, while the girl remained in good health and eventually lost her green-tinged skin. And over the coming years, she learned how to speak English and was later married to a man at Kingsland in the neighboring city of Norfolk.
Yeah.
And according to some accounts, she took the name Agnes Barr, and the man she married was the ambassador of Henry II. And those details, of course, have not been verified. But after she learned how to speak English, she relayed stories of their origins.
Yeah.
And the girl reported that she and her brother came from a strange underground land, which they called the Land of St. Martin. And in it, there was no sun, but a perpetual twilight. And like them, all the inhabitants of St. Martin lived underground and were green like them. And she described another luminous land that could be seen across a river. The girl explained that she and her brother were looking after their father's flock when they came upon a cave, and on entering the cave, they wandered through the darkness for a long time until, following the sound of bells, they popped out on either side. They entered into the bright sunlight, which they found startling, and it was then that they had been found by the Reapers. So somehow or another, they went through a cave and popped out, possibly through a portal or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, outside.
Yeah.
And no longer underground. So the story of the Green Children of Woolpit is set in the village of Woolpit in Suffolk. And in the Middle Ages, it lay within the most agriculturally productive and densely populated area of rural England. Yeah. So the story itself was recorded in two contemporary chronicles. The English chronicler, how do you say it? Chronicler?
Chronicler.
Ralph of Coggeshall. I don't know how to say that. But anyway, who died around 1228 AD. He was an abbot of Caesarean Monastery. It's about 26 miles away from where the Green Children. And his account of the Green Children of Woolpit was recorded in the Chronicon. Excuse me. And basically it was named Sir Richard of Decane. That was the second chronicle. So it was actually chronicled from two different people in two different places.
Yeah.
So, English historian and canon at the Augustinian Newburgh Priory, far to the north of Yorkshire, it also included the story of the Green Children.
Oh.
So the story is picked up in several different places, and both writers state that the events took place within the reign of King Stephen. Pretty sure it's how he's going to say it, not Stephen. Anyway, from 1135 to 1154, or King Henry II, which was 1154 to 1189. So it depends on which version of the story you actually read. Yeah. And there's been some theories as, you know, what's been put forward, right, with the strange story of these green children regarding their green coloring. One proposal is that the children were suffering from a condition known as hypochromic anemia.
Yep.
Originally known as chlorosis, coming from the Greek god Horus,
Yeah.
which means greenish yellow, and is caused by a very poor diet that affects the color of the red blood cells and results in a noticeably green shade of the skin. In
Yes.
support of this theory is the fact that the girl is described as returning to a normal color after adopting a healthy diet.
And
Or maybe that's how long it took the algae, right, to die off in her system.
and beans are an excellent filter food.
And you know what they say?
What?
Beans, good for the heart.
Yes. Now, allegedly, Woolpit is relatively close to a local copper mine, and it is possible that both these kids were actually working as child labor or slave labor in those mines since a very young age and had not seen the light of day for many years.
Yeah,
So
maybe they just
that
weren't
would
allowed out.
Yeah, that would explain their color and that they claimed everything in St. Martin's Land was also so green. So it could have been copper poisoning that killed the boy off. But I lean towards that. The whole, what do you call it? The exogenous copper poisoning. Or like you were saying, the chromadrosis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But is it nice to think that these kids came from space or a different underground world? That'd be kind of...
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you think the people around there would make the leap. Hey, there's a copper mine over here, and we've seen people that work in the mines come out there with green hands.
And plus, they were like hiding in a ditch, and the Reapers had to find them. I mean, if that done...
Well, it just means they were hiding in a ditch.
Okay. There seems to be a bit of like British and UK folklore that starts off with people being found after hiding someplace, and I'm like, there's a lot of people running from something bad in the UK, like in UK, like mythology and folklore, you know?
Well, maybe.
So,
I don't know. I don't know. It didn't say if she had children or not.
Yeah,
So it's possible that she didn't.
possibly. I mean,
Maybe she was poisoned. But anyway, yeah, there you go. So my brother was like, oh, I can't believe you've never heard of that. Well, there, we have explained it now. So I can say thank you, Will, for turning us on to that. And if you go to ancient-origins.net, you can find all sorts of stuff that may or may not be true. It's up to you.
yeah.
And that's where this article came from. So it's like, they have all sorts of stuff like human origins, history, artifacts, myths, places, unexplained weird facts, and premium. Premium's where you're going to pay for the good stuff. Enjoy these teasers. And you're like, yes. And it looks like all these pictures they're using are AI.
Yeah.
Why not? That's, people can be mad all they want. AI is here to stay, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So speaking of going, we're going to go.
Okay.
I think we've been talking long enough. We're looking at like an hour and 8 minutes roughly.
Yeah. So thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to find us on social media. We have a fairly active Facebook group. That's where we'd like to get more interactions from y'all. Show suggestions, ideas, funny stuff. Reach out if you've had a paranormal or strange experience. CreepGeeks Facebook group. Like our page for every time we release a new episode. And check out our Instagram for when we go live or post videos or what have you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, special thanks to the patrons and Dave for sharing his wonderful story with us, and my brother Will for turning us on to the green children of Woolpit. It's all good. Yeah. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and take a second and go ahead and get off the air before this lightning storm breaks any more things.
I've been holding Pepper for the past half hour of the show.
You were her thunder blanket.
Yeah.
Her thunder buddy. All right. Anyway, see you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.